You're at dinner with your friends. Someone tells a story and you laugh at exactly the right moment. Not too loud, not too late. You throw in a comment that lands perfectly and you watch everyone react. You're reading the room, adjusting your energy, making sure everyone's comfortable. You ask the quiet one a question so they feel included. You match the vibe of whoever's next to you. You're fun, but not too much. Chill, but still engaged. And the whole time, there's this part of your brain running in the background like a stage manager making sure the performance goes smoothly, making sure everyone walks away thinking, yeah, they're cool. They're easy to be around. I like them. And it works. People do like you. But on the drive home, you feel this weird exhaustion that doesn't make sense because nothing bad happened. And you start to wonder, do they actually like me? Or do they just like the character I've been playing so long I forgot it was a performance? Here's what's interesting. If you search for this feeling online, you'll probably land on something about social anxiety or imposter syndrome or maybe some article about being an introvert. But this isn't any of those things. Social anxiety is fear of being judged. This isn't fear. You're not scared of the social situation. You're actually pretty good at it. That's the whole problem. Imposter syndrome is feeling like a fraud in your achievements, like you don't deserve your success. But this isn't about achievements. This is about your entire personality feeling like a costume you put on every morning. What you're actually experiencing has a name in psychology. Several names, actually. Researchers call it social masking, self-monitoring, surface acting. And it goes way deeper than just being a people pleaser. In the 1970s, a psychologist named Mark Snyder identified something he called high self monitors. These are people who are extremely attuned to social cues and constantly adjust their behavior to fit whatever situation they're in. They're social chameleons. They can read a room in seconds and become exactly what that room needs them to be. And here's the thing. High self-monitors are often incredibly successful. They're charismatic. People are drawn to them. They tend to become leaders, but they pay a price. Because somewhere along the way, the line between who they are and who they perform gets so blurry they can't find it anymore. Now, I want to walk you through the 4 types of personality performance. And I need you to pay attention because at least one of these is going to hit uncomfortably close to home. These aren't official clinical categories. They're patterns I've identified from research on masking, self-monitoring, and something psychoanalysts call the false self. See which one sounds familiar? Type 1, the social architect. You're the one who makes things work. In every group, you're unconsciously running calculations. Who hasn't spoken in a while? Who seems uncomfortable? What can you say to ease the tension? You don't just participate in conversations. You engineer them. You ask questions you already know the answer to because you know the other person wants to talk about it. You laugh at jokes that aren't that funny because you can see how much the person needed the validation. You're so busy making sure everyone else is having a good time that you forget to check if you are. And the exhausting part? You make it look effortless. People think you're just naturally warm, naturally easy to talk to. They have no idea there's a control room in your head with 1,000 screens, monitoring everyone's emotional state and adjusting your behavior in real time. The social architect develops in childhood, usually because they learned early that harmony was their responsibility. Maybe there was conflict at home. Maybe a parent's mood was unpredictable. You learned that if you could just keep everyone happy, you could keep yourself safe. So you got really good at it, and now you can't stop, even when you're exhausted, even when no one asked you to. Type 2, the mirror. You don't just read the room, you become the room. You're with your work friends, and you're professional, measured, ambitious. You're with your college friends, and suddenly you're loud, sarcastic, a little reckless. You're with your family, and you're someone else entirely, and it's not that you're being fake. Each version feels real in the moment, but when you're alone, you feel like you're nobody, like you're made of fog. The mirror doesn't have a stable internal reference point. Your sense of self is externally calibrated, which means you need other people to know who you are. Psychologist Donald Winnicott called this the false self, a protective identity built in childhood when your authentic expressions weren't met with acceptance. The false self isn't lying. It genuinely believes it's being itself, but it's constructed entirely from what others needed you to be. The giveaway is that you might struggle to answer simple questions when you're alone. What do I actually want to eat? What music do I genuinely like? What do I believe about this? When there's no one to reflect, the mirror goes blank. Type 3. The peacekeeper. You will do almost anything to avoid conflict. Not because you're weak, but because somewhere deep in your nervous system, conflict feels like an existential threat. If someone is upset, your entire body goes on alert. Your job becomes making them not upset, even if you have to absorb the emotional shrapnel yourself. This is actually a documented trauma response called the fawn response: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. When your brain calculates that you can't fight the threat and you can't run from it, fawning is the backup plan. Appease, please, make yourself useful, make yourself liked, make yourself safe. The peacekeeper often grew up around volatile emotions: parents who raged, siblings who exploded, environments where the only way to survive was to become so agreeable, so accommodating, so easy that you became invisible in the best way possible. The problem is that this survival mechanism doesn't turn off just because you're safe now. You're 30 years old at a dinner party going into fawn mode because someone raised their voice slightly. You agree with opinions you don't hold. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You twist yourself into shapes that hurt because straightening out feels too dangerous. Type 4. The curator. You're exhausting yourself trying to be the exact right version of yourself. Not people-pleasing exactly. It's more like you're the editor of your own life. And you never stop editing. You think about how you come across. You replay interactions looking for errors. You craft your responses, your image, your entire presence. You're not trying to manipulate anyone. You genuinely just want to be a good person, a cool person, someone worth knowing. But the effort is relentless. The curator is performing even when alone. You judge your own thoughts. You curate your own reactions. You're so used to optimizing yourself for external validation that you do it reflexively, even when no one's watching. Social media amplified this type significantly. We're now performing our personalities for an invisible audience 24 hours a day. Even your private moments feel observed. You might catch yourself thinking about how something would look if someone saw it, even though no one's there. The curator often scores high on something researchers call other-directedness, constantly orienting toward how others perceive them rather than how they actually feel. The result is a life that looks great from the outside but feels hollow from within. Because you've optimized for appearing happy rather than being happy. So why do some people develop these patterns while others don't? Part of it is temperament. Some brains are simply more attuned to social feedback, but mostly it comes down to early environment. When children receive consistent acceptance for who they actually are, they develop what Winnicott called a true self, a stable core identity that can adapt to situations without losing itself. But when children learn that love is conditional, that acceptance depends on performing correctly, they build an identity from the outside in. They become experts at being what others need, but strangers to what they actually are. Here's the reframe though. If you see yourself in any of these types, that's not evidence that you're broken. It's evidence that your brain did something incredibly sophisticated to keep you safe. Your nervous system solved a complex problem. How do I stay connected to the people I need when being myself might push them away? And it worked. You survived. You adapted. You're here. The exhaustion you feel after socializing isn't weakness. It's the tax your brain pays for running social prediction software at maximum capacity. The emptiness isn't a character flaw. It's the natural result of building outward for so long that you haven't furnished the inside. The work now isn't to destroy the performer. You don't need to burn down everything you've built. The performer got you here. The work is to slowly, carefully start building a relationship with whoever's been waiting underneath. To let that version exist, even for 5 minutes a day, even just with yourself, because here's what I've learned. The people who are exhausted by performing themselves are usually the same people who would be deeply liked for exactly who they are. They just never gave anyone the chance to meet that person. Which of these 4 types hit closest to home for you? Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. If you found this useful, consider subscribing. I'm exploring the psychology of why some minds work differently and what that means for the people living inside them. Until next time. This is Pattern Logic, signing out.